But I said that to friends of mine last night when we started talking about Israel and Palestine.
So
And
let's have that be another topic for us, because we could talk that through as well.
yeah, I mean, and I clarified, I was like, I am all for, like, I don't have a problem with Israel going after Hamas at all. I mean, Hamas is a terrorist organization. What they did was absolutely fucking disgusting in
Yeah.
every imaginable way. And Israel has every right to, but I do also and I also recognize that the Palestinian people are not Hamas.
Agreed.
And they're being used as pawns by Hamas. And I
But
feel
they're not being used by Israel. I don't feel. I feel Israel has given the, and I don't have a dog in this race, in the sense that I am not, I'm not committed to the history of either side. I don't know the deep down history of either side, right? But if I'm not mistaken, Israel has given the people of Gaza opportunity to exit.
but there's nowhere for them to go.
Oh, now that's interesting. Can they not go to
That's
Israel? Are we
Israel.
not letting them in?
No, they're not going to go into Israel because there could potentially be Hamas as a
Yeah, I know
mix.
that.
So Israel's not going to let them in. Egypt, I think, is starting to let a small group in. Jordan, I believe, maybe is also a bordering country, but none of them want them to go.
No, of course not.
I
But
mean,
that's war. That's the downside of war. It's ugly and
it's the downside of war.
non-compassionate.
Yeah, they have nowhere to go. I mean, they literally, all the borders were closed and they sit on water.
Yeah, right, exactly. So what is the alternative? Because I what Hamas did is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to me.
Absolutely not. But the problem is, and I'm not clearly not even remotely close to being an expert, but I have been trying to pay a lot of attention to what's happening. And the experts are saying the members of Hamas who did this, like the ones who just like the guys who orchestrated 9/11, they are not in Gaza. They're in Lebanon.
Okay.
So them bombing the fuck out of Gaza is just killing civilians.
Right. I hear you.
And maybe the henchmen, right? Like they're probably getting the soldiers or people who did partake, which
Right.
is not okay. I'm not saying any of that is okay. I feel like Israel's response has been so over the top. It's very similar, in my opinion, of how the US responded to 9/11. It was like, I absolutely think that the United States have every right to go after Osama bin Laden and go after, what was the name of their group? It was the Taliban. No, not the Taliban. The Taliban came out of it. What was the group before the Taliban? Or maybe
I was
they
going
were,
to say
I'm drawing a blank. It
not
was,
Hezbollah
no, Hezbollah
is a location.
no, it's not a location.
It
Hezbollah,
isn't?
no, they are a group based out of Lebanon, I believe, who were funded by Russia.
Oh,
And Hezbollah is much, much bigger. So if they get involved, then this could escalate really quickly. That's what a lot of the pundits are very fearful of. Because Hamas is a terrorist organization, and say like they're the size of like a baseball, and Hamas is like the size of a basketball.
so these terrorist organizations are would they say, not us, but them, are they religious based?
Sure.
They're
I mean,
based on
and that's the
religion?
problem is, you know, I don't know as much about Hezbollah, and I clearly don't even know much about Hamas other than they don't believe Israel should exist. They do not believe Jews should be alive.
Which
And
that is just the most baffling thought process to me.
it goes back so many centuries. I mean, that's
Agreed.
the problem, right? Like it's not as simple as just like, oh wow, how can they hate each other? I mean, these feuding battles have been going on for a really long time, and the West did not help because after World War II, they basically moved Palestinians out of the way and said, Israel, we're going to give you your land back, and plop them in the middle of all these Muslim countries that don't even think they should exist. I mean, and that was what, 1948.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just awful. Like all of this is so awful, and it's so bad, and so many people are being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've heard some pundits laugh, or I shouldn't say laugh, but say that it's hyperbolic to say this could be the beginning of World War III, and they think that that's ridiculous. But I absolutely think this could be the beginning of World War III. I mean, if Hezbollah and Lebanon get involved, and Russia's already fighting Ukraine.
Yeah.
And then I was reading yesterday morning, it was either yesterday morning or Friday morning, that in the China Sea, there's fear that they're starting to see aircraft carriers and military movement from China on Taiwan. If that happens, if there are 3 raging wars all happening at the same time, it's basically the Axis versus the Allies. And the United Nations has been abolished. I mean, that's where Trump did so much damage.
I can't. I mean,
and that's why it was so important that we should have, and I'm not saying we just in the United States, but the United Nations should have really cranked it up against Russia with Ukraine.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things we should be doing for sure. But how do you get, it's hard to wrangle crazy. It's hard.
Well, I feel like that's way too easy to simplify that it's crazy. I think it's,
No, I mean the people, like all of the, like you could, I'm sitting at the Steeler bar watching the Steeler game next to a Steeler fan, and the commercial for the second round of COVID comes on, and it's the commercial with Martha Stewart, John Legend, is that his name? You know, somebody else, and the Kelsey guy, right? And they all got the second shot, and the guy sitting next to me says, and they're all idiots. And I'm like, you know what? This is the problem we're having in life.
well, that's the scariest part of what's happening right now. I mean, the ultimate winner in all of this is misinformation.
Yeah.
No one
And
knows
those that profit off of misinformation, because I figure, I'm like, why is this so important to you to fuck everybody's life up? Oh, because you're making money at it. Like somehow you're
100%.
making money. Aye.
I mean, if you think about, and I'm just saying you collectively or in general, but it's like where people are getting their news is TikTok. And what are influencers paid for to get clicks? So you have a lot, or views. So you have, or likes, whatever. So you have people who, in my opinion, and I've heard others talk about this too, where they are just creating content that's going to get attention. They are not experts. They don't know what they're talking about. They're not reading news. It's their opinions. And I'm jumping around a little bit, but even the videos that were circulating, right, of the babies being beheaded, and then it came out that they were actually like deep fakes and weren't real at all. And regardless of whether they were real or not, the reality is what Hamas did was absolutely disgusting and atrocious. And they did kill children. It's not like they didn't. But the beheading of children, if they did that, adds another layer of fury.
Yeah.
For people.
But who's watching videos of children being beheaded? Who's watching that shit? I mean, fake or not fake? I'm just like,
But
this is what worries me
think about
about the
how,
people.
but think about how human brains work, right?
I
I mean,
know this is
same-
why I'm
it's the same
frightened.
right. It's like the same concept of being on the highway driving and seeing that there's an accident and everyone slows down to see what exactly is going on.
Right. Yeah, and I admit it. It frightens me. It stresses me out that is like, to me, I so badly want to see all of us, me included, right? I'm going to include me in this umbrella statement. I want to see all of us work hard to make good, correct decisions. I love that.
But I mean, yes, sure. But the problem is everyone's definition of the word correct, right?
Agreed.
Like if you are a member of Hamas, the correct world does not include Jews.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? It also doesn't include me, right? I mean, me in my current form, I would not be included. Neither would you.
I don't think they'd necessarily kill us. Like they
Let's
literally
hope.
don't. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
that's not true. You know why they would kill us? Well, I know why they would kill me, right? Because I would not conform. That's and that religion, if I'm not mistaken, is all about conformity, especially for women, right? We got to do the rules, and there's a long list of them. And if that means I can't wear this shirt and I'm not covering my head because I've already got a fat round face, and if I cover my head, I look fatter. Not happening. I am talking to strangers. I could not conform to that lifestyle. I just couldn't, and therefore, I don't think I would qualify for life.
I understand that. Like it's just, I still feel like it's different in the sense of them just believing this group of people, man, woman, like should all be murdered. And what's really scary is you have like there's been protest at Grand Central here. There's a lot of protests happening all over the city. And they continue. In fact, I want to make sure I'm saying it right. So I'm going to look it up. But it's not from sea to sea, but it's something close to that, from river to the sea. So now you have college students and others who are chanting from river to the sea, and it's a completely anti-Semitic comment. It's basically, in fact, I'll read it, but I believe it means that they want all
Like
the Jews
clear them
wiped
out.
out, like clear them out.
It's just,
Yeah, here it is. It's a
such a foreign
political slogan
concept.
and phrase that refers to geographically to the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Da, 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 da. The slogan has been used by Palestinians, Israelis, and their supporters. For the Palestinian side, the slogan has come to be interpreted by some as advocating for a single democratic Palestinian state, which makes sense. The slogan's usage by Palestinian militant groups have led to claims by critics that the slogan is anti-Semitic, calling for the dismantling of Israel and denying Jewish self-determination, or that it advocates for their removal or extermination.
It's just, but I'm never gonna understand it, right? I'm never gonna be able to wrap my head around it. And one, I am thankful for that because I don't want to, right? And two, it does though make it hard to communicate. Like I can't even like muster fake sympathy for, and I'm not going to say for Palestinians because not all Palestinians believe this is the case, right?
Yeah.
But for those that believe it's a good idea to wipe out an entire section of the human race is just that. I mean, the reason why I know that's wrong, and I bet we could get all people to agree that the general rule, the general thought is wrong, is because if we just switch the race, right? Let's switch it from all white people should be wiped out, as opposed to just Jewish people. You could get a lot of white people to say, no, that's not right. Right?
Well, I just think the problem is people are saying it and don't know that there are different interpretations depending on who's saying it.
What would be an alternative interpretation from somebody who doesn't know?
Well, no, even that reading that I just read, right? Like there are Palestinians who believe that Palestine should have independence from Israel.
Yes, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that all of those Palestinians that believe that are also willing to back that up with violence.
I would not agree with that.
I think they would. How else are they going to maintain it? You think Israel's just going to walk away? Like, wave your magic wand?
I mean, that's where it gets tricky. And with the West Bank, Israel left in 2000,
right?
7 or
but
not.
They don't think Israel should have any land. If I'm not, that's what you told me originally. Is there should be no Israel? They're not walking away.
Yes, that's the difference. The militants see it differently than the Palestinians, right? And that's what we started talking about to begin with. Hamas and the Palestinians are not the same people.
Not always, right? There might be some Palestinian Hamas people.
Of course, there's no question.
Yeah,
absolutely no question.
But just because you're Palestinian doesn't mean you're a Hamas.
That is exactly right.
Right. Agreed. Totally agree.
And I just think that a lot of people, like with anything, they hear a chant and then they start chanting it. And it's like not thinking about a Jewish person that may hear that and know the meaning and how that may impact them.
So is it wrong?
I do think it's wrong because I think at the end of the day, after what Hamas has done, I think that it's gonna, and not to mention just all the anti-Semitic things that are happening now. And that's the other sad part is I think a lot of people are thinking all Jews are bad because of what Netanyahu is doing in terms of the military forces. I mean, what was it yesterday, the day before it came out, or there were images of Israel bombing a hospital, which isn't, that's against international law. Like you're not supposed to bomb hospitals. Then Israel came out and said,
did they say it wasn't them?
No, that was something else.
Oh,
that
okay.
was the rocket that was supposed to be firing into Israel from Gaza that apparently got misdirected. This was another one a few days ago. And Israel said, yeah, we did it, but it's because these members of Hamas were apparently hiding underneath the hospital.
There's probably better ways to handle that though, right?
Then of course Hamas says that's not true. There was no one there. They're basically trying to extinguish us. And it's like, I mean, the Jewish schools here have security now. Mm-hmm. There's a Palestinian place. I just noticed it last night. I'd walked by it a million times, but I just never noticed it. And when I was in my Uber ride home, I saw where there were cones and things around it. So clearly they are trying to block people and having security. And I've heard, just lots of noise chants and things. And I'm guessing it's coming from there. It's like a community center, but it's really small. It's like a house that they converted. I mean, that's where it's so scary when, say, if you're Palestinian, you just think all Israelis are bad. And if you're Israeli thinking all the Palestinians are bad, that's where that othering comes from. And then, and again, I'm going to go back to the misinformation that I just feel like no one knows what to believe anymore, right? You want to believe the New York Times. You want to, I mean, maybe there'll be this resurgence in believing real media again or real news outlets. But I had read that this group, I think they're called Jews for Peace. I think they're called Jews for Peace, but I can't be quoted. And they are some of the people who are protesting with the with the pro-Palestinian groups, because they want Israel to stop bombing Palestine and Gaza specifically. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, and again, I don't know, but he was like, yeah, but the majority of members of the group aren't Jewish.
And there you have it.
And I mean, he's very smart. I know he pays a lot of attention to those things, but immediately I wanted to be like, well, where did you read it? And I mean, again, I know he's like a fact checker and looks at sourcing, so I'm sure it's true, but you just don't know.
Well, I think we're learning though, right? Like even almost everything I run through my, is this true filter? Is this possible that it's true? And then if it is possible, then let's find out. Like even I'm willing to do that. And I'm like, and it takes up time. And
But what I'm saying is, even the tools that we use to fact check are tools that we use, right? Which is the internet.
right.
99.999% of the time, we can't trust everything we see.
No, I agree.
I mean,
As evidenced by babies being beheaded videos, which my first thing would be, this has got to be AI, because I just find it, I find the logistics of that crazy. Like who's going to film it? Who's going to then put it out? I mean, it's
yeah,
just
but they
crazy.
wanted to. That's what Hamas did. Like they were literally filming, killing these Israelis in the kibbutz, and then
All right,
putting it
but
on.
that's not Israelis beheading babies. I thought that's what you were talking about.
No, this
Oh,
was Hamas at the day of October, was it 17th, when they
yeah.
raided? That's when those came out.
Oh,
And even Biden apparently made reference to it, or news media outlets picked up on it. And
well, how
clearly
is that?
what they did was awful, but when people heard that they beheaded babies, it was like this outrage. I mean, they were already outraged, but it just added that layer of fury. And then it came out that that wasn't it
But
possibly wasn't real.
okay, now let's not talk about the politics or anything of it. I want to talk about the logistics and the thought process. So is the universe saying that Israelis put those videos out?
No
Because
one's,
it doesn't make any sense that Hamas would create their own videos that showed them being horrible, horrific,
but they did do it.
terrible people. Why? I mean, like, what's the thought process behind that?
Because they wanted Israel to know that they were coming after them. I mean, who knows? How do you get in the head of someone who would even do something
Yeah,
like
I
that?
agree. That's all part of it. I'm just like the marketing aspect of that makes no sense to me. That defeats
I
your
mean,
marketing purpose right
well,
there.
they wanted to be clear, like, this is the power we have. This is what we can do to your people. This is what, like, and
Wow, it's just again though, it's something we're never going to understand. I don't understand that much hatred. I just don't. I mean, there's people I do not like. Clearly, I do not like the T word. But if he was in a car accident, I would run to help him,
you're
right?
so nicer than me.
I know. I don't know that, but I would, because that's the kind of person that I want to be. I do care about my fellow man, and if he was hungry, I'd feed him. So
Well, again, but that's the difference. I think if you were, it's like when we were talking about immigrants earlier, or even talking about the T word, like, you still see him as a man. If you did not see him as being a human being
right,
and labeled him as something other than that, it makes it a lot easier to either walk away,
yeah,
not care, and have zero empathy.
yeah, I do agree, and I'm not perfect in that. I mean, I'm not voting for the T word, and I will work very hard and do whatever it takes to keep him out of office. Again, inside the law. but yeah, I mean, and just on a human level, I don't want him, to suffer any more than I'd want myself to suffer, right? I mean, I just wouldn't. So, but what do I know? I just don't understand that kind of hate. And again, I'm thankful I don't. I'm really glad. I'm glad I'm not that person. I'll live with it.